You are about to opt in to Monerotopia, a show for the Monero community where all are welcome to join. From noob to maxi, no matter what bags you hold. Just sit back and relax to the sweet sounds of Monero's latest progress. Or if you're feeling inspired, join us on stage. Remember, the only thing that can stop Monero is a false belief that it can be stopped. And if you want to win the revolution faster, we recommend you remove your XMR from all custodial exchanges immediately. Warning, voting accidents are common around here. Don't forget to properly secure your private keys. Monerotopia starts now.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
All right. Oh, it's dark.
Yeah, it's dark. Cheerios.
Yeah, we can see that beautiful outside, though. Looks really cool.
Yeah, we tried to make it a little higher, but
It's beautiful.
here we are.
We're at an undisclosed location.
Oh, I actually wrote it down
In
here.
Greece. Yeah. So big and secretive. So good luck finding it. Tux, how's it going, man?
It's going all right. It's going all right. Just chilling here on my end. Not quite in a, nice fancy beach like that, but still good.
Yeah, this place is amazing.
It's been awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been great.
It's
How long are you staying for?
well, we started off in Rhodes, and then we took a ferry over here. It's like an hour and a half. It's just another island near Rhodes, and we'll be here for like another day, and then we're going to finishing off in Kos, and then we're headed back home. But yeah,
Nice,
so far it's
nice.
been amazing. Like Monerokon was like a week away. Feels like it was like
I know. Yeah,
a month away.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
only like a week, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was only a week.
Yeah, it was awesome. We had a great
It sounds
time
like that
over
was
there.
really all good.
Monerokon was amazing, right? It was really good, really
Yeah, that was
great.
amazing.
I mean, you were there. You saw the stream, right?
I did see the stream on the stream, yeah.
Franya had an amazing time. It was just fantastic. Everybody was jiving. We had the full membership proofs. I feel like was the big news from Monerokon. That was exciting.
Definitely, that definitely got hyped up for sure. I mean, I
was
don't
awesome.
think it's like a bad thing because it's like a really big thing. So that'll be interesting going into the future, seeing how that manifests.
Yeah, we'll see how long it takes from here. But exciting to see that there's kind of a roadmap now. But yeah, let's take it away. What do we got? So we can get back to hanging out over here. We actually did. This is our first meal of the day, just olives and wine. We've just been hanging out at the beach. But yeah, let's
I guess
get a move on.
Yeah. You wanna do
Yeah,
price
all right. I
report?
guess
Yeah.
we can go ahead into the price report with Bawdy.
Let's do it.
The Monerotopia Price Report segment is sponsored by Local Monero. Avoid using KYC exchanges. Buy and sell Monero directly for fiat, peer-to-peer.
Hey guys,
Yo, Bawdy.
Hey.
Come on, man.
I love that you guys are rocking the sunglasses at 6 a.m. It's amazing.
Oh my God,
Yeah, no. What time is it here now?
it's 6 p.m.
Yeah, it's 6 p.m. here. 6
Oh,
p.m.
6 p.m. Oh, I thought you were 6 a.m. Oh, y'all are fine then.
Oh, imagine. No, you would not be this excited.
No, you don't want to see us at 6
I
p.m.
would be a hot mess.
Well,
Wow,
regardless,
I guess I
rocking the
haven't looked at
sunglasses at any time.
Monero price in a while. Looks like yeah, a lot of green candles. Holy shit.
Crazy stuff happening past week.
I can't remember who it was, but someone pointed out that this was like more green candles than we've seen in a row than maybe it was like ever or only like once or twice in Monero's history. I didn't. I was too
Really?
lazy to go back and count, but yeah. I mean, this is it wasn't that epic in terms of like percentages. Okay, 25%, but just the fact that we had that many green candles in a row. I remember
Yeah.
a few weeks ago you were talking about that. Hey, if they delist Monero, like if our theories are right, that should cause the price to go up, right? Because then they've got to acquire the Monero to pay the people out that before they close the withdrawals. So yeah, I mean, maybe this is that, or maybe it's just Monerokon.
Wow. Yeah, and then we also saw like a big increase in transaction count, right?
We did. There was kind of a big spike. That probably was Monerokon, and also Porkfest. So Monero is in yellow here at the bottom. We spiked from like 20,000 up to 40,000. We're kind of back down to normal now. So this would seem to make sense, maybe being Porkfest plus Monerokon. And or someone, I mean, when we see spikes like that, I always get suspicious that maybe some entity is trying to track someone down, do some poisoned outputs, trying to flood the network to maybe target like a few individuals. But I'm not like, I wouldn't be able to say that I know the statistics well enough on that to see if to say that might be reliable. We'd have to ask like one of the experts to really know that.
Could it also be people like pulling their coins off of Binance or something? I haven't been following.
I suppose so, yeah. I suppose so. There was I don't remember which countries it was. It was like 3 or 4 EU countries. It's kind of weird. You'd think they would just pull them from all EU countries at the same time. But right. I don't know. Maybe they need to slush some liquidity around still before they do that entirely.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, then they re-added a bunch of other quote unquote privacy coins, but then they didn't re-add Monero, right?
Yeah, that was special. So there was something like 12 coins that they delisted. I think it was 11. You really shouldn't include Beam because Beam was already delisted. I don't know why. I couldn't figure out. It was just like a very generic statement like Binance reviews the quality and the community and the coin and some other things that sound really nice to regulators. And we determined that Beam could not continue to be listed. And it's like, okay, well, they didn't say exactly why. Anyways, but yeah, they removed a bunch of coins and then they relisted most of them, except for I think it was Mob, XMR, Firo, and maybe I think it was Beam. So in my mind, the way that I kind of looked at that was, you know how when the mainstream media will come out and they will loudly proclaim the lie. They'll be like, this is the truth and look at this and oh my God, how terrible. And then like a few months later, they'll just quietly retract that and be like, oh yeah, we were wrong, right. But they won't do that. I think that's kind of what Binance here did with Monero. Again, you don't want to just be like, yeah, Monero's the only one that really, really meets those requirements. I sat down for maybe like 30 minutes or an hour this week trying to do things like calculate volume, the Binance reported volume on these different coins to determine, and then also try and figure out which of these coins are opt-in privacy versus default privacy. And I mean, guess what? They're all opt-in privacy, including Firo. I think Firo is trying to get away from that, but they're still technically opt-in. So anyways, it's like they relisted a few coins. The ones they relisted, I don't think they had much volume for. So it's like, okay, that's basically, what the MSM does. They didn't want to single out Monero, so they removed all the privacy coins and then they added, a bunch of the other ones back. And then, obviously not Monero. So that was kind of my crack theory on what they were doing there in a social sense.
Kind of bizarre. I also think maybe, maybe like Zcash does better with communicating with exchanges and maybe getting them to relist as opposed to Monero, right? There's really nobody reaching out on Monero's behalf to make arguments, right, as to why.
But also Binance can just like use Zcash unshielded, right? Like they choose not to shield any that they get and they send.
Yeah, I mean that's what they're gonna do with these. So they relisted only opt-in privacy coins, and they're only gonna not opt-in. I mean, Doug, if anything, we've got people from Monero asking CZ to please delist Monero. Like, please just end it, bro. Just get rid of it.
It'll be ultimately better.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I mean no complaint, right? Obviously, ultimately better in terms of not, being part of the KYC machine, but also it doesn't seem to be having a negative effect on price. So,
yeah,
it's like kind of a win-win.
Speaking of KYC. The SEC called, so this was like yesterday, they called BlackRock and Fidelity ETFs inadequate. So, there was a bunch of hype and happiness about how, BlackRock and Fidelity and a whole bunch of other people too. I think like Valkyrie, maybe Vanguard, a few others. Anyways, they all tried to apply for ETFs, spot ETFs. So the more I looked into it, yes, these are indeed spot ETFs where they will actually buy and sell the real asset, Bitcoin, to try and track the price and return the exact same as the underlying asset, which is what a spot ETF does. The ETFs that were released in 2021, they weren't actually tracking the price of Bitcoin. They were tracking the price of the futures market of Bitcoin on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, the CME. So those are different things. You know, they're not actually tracking the price, the underlying price of Bitcoin, sort of indirectly. Okay, but these recent ETF applications were for an actual spot ETF. But the SEC yesterday said that they were inadequate for, get this, not specific enough about surveillance sharing between exchanges. Like that was the big thing that they cited. So I
So
guess,
they're saying that there not enough tracking is taking place, is what they're saying.
I think specifically their language was not enough guarantees of tracking. So it's like they said, you know, maybe they're doing all the same tracking in the background, but they just didn't say, they didn't promise they were going to do enough. So
that's interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's not,
I thought
that's not,
BlackRock was going to be the one to get it through, right?
well, they might still. I think, I don't know if it's Fidelity, at least a few of them have already resubmitted their application. So, I mean, I think they're going to keep plugging away at this. They're going to keep trying. So, but yeah, that wasn't the thing I was expecting the SEC to say as a rejection reason. I'm not too surprised that they rejected it. I mean, I remember you asked me to give it some odds, and I was like, well, I don't know, 50-50.
Yeah.
But I think at some point they probably will get approved. It's hard to say, right? Who knows? There's all kinds of politics happening in the background.
Yeah. And so did that, like, once again, I haven't been keeping an eye, did that seem to affect Bitcoin's price? Like the negative news,
no.
like kind of sell the news
No, Friday didn't seem to. I mean, there was kind of a big red candle down here. I don't know in terms of timing, this red candle that happened would not have been related to that news. I mean, it's only 5% down. But yeah, Friday didn't really seem to overall see any major downside to Bitcoin. So I don't think that news had a big effect. I mean, in a social sense, I think people, like, once you get bullish, most people tend to start getting a bit irrational once you start getting more bullish. So, I mean, the social sentiment at the moment, I think, is still pretty high.
All right.
Technically, we've made just a little bit. So these were our close prices on these were the close prices on Bitcoin, the last sort of peak we had back in April. So the close prices have kind of peaked up above that a little bit. We've got some wicks up here. Price is still kind of struggling. You'll notice that we have this line here at 32,000. I still think that it's very likely to at least make a wick up into that line. There is the case to be made that we could make it as high as 50,000, right? We could really actually try and run this. I think that there's other macro problems that are happening, and if price is going to try and jump that high, it needs to happen soon. So, for example, from the bottom, I guess from the very bottom, price is currently up by 100% on Bitcoin. So to get there, we've got to go another 50% from where we already are. And I'm seeing things that just don't look congruent with a mega pump. We can start with the simple stuff like looking at the dollar, and we talked about last week how price had kind of come down here, and that the dollar was, or at least the Dixie, the index of the dollar, which compares against the euro, Japanese yen, Canadian, Australian, and Swiss franc, and Great British pound. Maybe the Swiss franc not. I might have added that on accident. Anyways, okay, so this is the Dixie. It compares against that basket of currencies, primarily against the euro, like 60% euro. Anyways, so what we saw here was, instead of coming all the way down, to some of these more prominent lines, it just kind of stopped halfway and then decided to start coming up again. So we're running up into these resistances again, and it looks like, I mean, this is basically strength. Like, okay, the dollar didn't quite get into this zone right here, but essentially this looks like strength. The dollar is looking like it wants to make some kind of turnaround here. It doesn't have to do it immediately, like we talked about last week. It could sit here and kind of range for a little bit before actually breaking to the upside. But it does look like it's going to want to try and make another run to the upside. There's another thing that's kind of important for us to look at, and that's the Federal Reserve balance sheet. So basically, we're now actually exactly at the same point that we were at the lows in March, right before the whole banking crisis started. So it's been interesting because the bear market has been with these assets being sold off the Fed balance sheet, and then so that was from here to about here. And then the markets really started going up somewhere around this time, even though the Fed balance sheet was still going down. But ultimately, this is kind of a liquidity thing, and we're seeing dropping liquidity, right? There's less cash available in the market. And this should probably continue going down because the Federal Reserve is probably going to continue selling that balance sheet. There was something that Monero Tony pointed out, I think it was yesterday on Twitter, and that was this concept called net liquidity. So essentially, if you took the M2SL for basically all, I think it's the M2SL. Let's go ahead and check that out just to make sure I have that right. Well, no, sorry, it's just the balance sheet. If you look at the balance sheet of all the different central banks, so like we're looking at China, Japan, UK, ECB, all the big heavy hitter economies. So the net liquidity is in green. Oh, that's the Fed net liquidity. All right, global net liquidity is in white. And what we've seen, let's go to the weekly. What we've seen is that broadly speaking, net liquidity for both like the global net liquidity and the Fed liquidity tends to correlate with big market pumps. And that makes sense. It means they're printing a bunch of money, right? Their balance sheet is expanding because there's new money being printed. And that money is going to go somewhere, and typically it's going to go into risk assets. So we're looking at the S&P 500 here on the candles. And effectively, what we've seen as of late is that global net liquidity is dropping, even though the stock market has kind of been going up, or been, maybe you could say flat, but we've got this dropping global net liquidity. I don't know why on earth the green line, the Fed net liquidity, this is someone else's script, by the way. So I just pulled this up. I only had time to pull up someone else's scripts. Usually I try and write my own. I need to figure out why the Fed's liquidity is like already projected into the future on July 17th. That's probably just an artifact of TradingView, the way that the data is pulled. But anyways, the point is that we're seeing dropping global liquidity. We're seeing dropping liquidity in general, even though the stock market's kind of been going up, right? There's this divergence happening. So again, we're kind of getting into this area where I look at these signals, and I'm not comfortable saying that that things can continue going up for too much longer. And they probably can continue going up here a little bit more. We've got US 10-year here, the 10-year yield, and this thing looks like it's flirting with trying to get up out of this, to break this resistance to here, the downward sloping resistance. So again, that could still take some time. We could see this thing trend this way, maybe break here. A lot of things that I'm looking at are starting to kind of look like August could be the time to really start maybe taking some profits or starting to become concerned. Obviously, we've got to play it by ear. Overnight repurchase agreements. Probably this is what has been driving the stock market to stay high more than anything, is overall just the reverse repos have been coming down. That would be from 2.25 trillion all the way down to 1.29. So, about $300 billion that probably could be going into the stock market. We don't know exactly where it's going, but with the stock market going up, that would be a good assumption. So, right, we've got the S&P here. It's actually made technically a slightly higher high. You could probably try and say this might look like the beginning of some kind of divergence, but I mean, who knows, right? This thing hypothetically could just keep on going. I think that this upsloping line here will probably act as a resistance. Maybe it's possible it could, kind of end up doing that. Again, at some point, it's hard for me to expect that big new gains are coming for the stock market in the near term. This right here is the NASDAQ divided by the S&P, so it's kind of like peaked out a little bit. If you look at this, you could also say that we're definitely looking at divergence here, right? So we've got the momentum is going down, the z-scores are going down, even though a slightly higher high was made. So the idea with this chart is that usually when it's risk on, people go into the riskier assets, which would be the NASDAQ tech stocks. So when usually in bull markets, you see the NASDAQ outperforming the S&P typically, and that's what we've basically had since the beginning of this year. This is starting to look a bit toppy. And then we've also got the NASDAQ here is still kind of struggling with this important resistance. It looks like it maybe wants to try and break it, right? Like maybe we get above that. So anyways, happy gains, everyone. Let's take a look at Monero again, a little bit more about the ratio. Actually, we'll do that in just a second. Okay, Bitcoin dominance. We peaked out at this 52, like this kind of white line that we had here, right? That's kind of a reasonable spot to think might happen. So I do think it's possible that Bitcoin dominance has more to go. Especially like, okay, so maybe we could find some news events that could drive this. Maybe we see BlackRock resubmit their ETF, right? And then everyone can get really excited again that, oh, they're going to fix the surveillance problems. This will, of course, be great lulls for all of us Monero fans, because it's like, oh, they're going to promise to do more surveillance. So that's really not what we're in it for. But okay, guys. But on we go to Monero. So one thing I wanted to take a look at today with Monero was a few things that we don't normally look at. So I'm going to turn off all of these lines and stuff, because that's really that's one way to look at things. I want to turn on some descriptive statistics. So the blue line here is the standard deviation of basically the lifetime standard deviation of the entire chart. And it includes basically at every single point, every single candle, the standard deviation is recalculated for everything which came before it. So you know how usually you'll have like a moving average. It's like, okay, we're going to look at a 100-day moving average. Okay, well, that's a rolling 100-day moving average, but it doesn't include the entire chart. It doesn't include every single candle. But what this script does here is at every single candle, like, so for example, let's just look at this one right here. This would be April 17th. At this moment, for this candle, the blue line calculates the standard deviation and then also the moving average. That's what the white line is down there. For all of the candles which came before it, and it does that for every single new candle that it gets. So it's kind of like the cumulative lifetime continuously calculated moving average standard deviation. So if we're looking at that, and then let's also take a look at the moving averages. So these are basically a whole bunch of different moving averages, and it's actually kind of a cool chart. Let's expand this chart. So one thing that you can see is that, right, this is a bunch of moving averages just all overlaid on top of each other, and it creates this kind of like wavy magic kind of thing. It's one of the things that I want to show you guys more in the future. So for now, we'll just look at the moving averages here. And you can see that this kind of cluster of moving averages has held good support for price pretty much for the entire bear market, starting in May. Kind of dipped down below it a little bit. You almost maybe would have expected trying to get to the, again, sort of this lifetime moving average. Anyway, so what we're looking at here is prices basically kind of being constrained and volatility's dropping off. Between those bands, there we go. Between sort of this upper, like the highest moving average cluster that we have, and then this lowest moving average cluster. So if we continue going up, and it's possible that we will, it's possible that we might end up somewhere here in like the 191 range. That would be kind of a reasonable target to shoot for. At the same time, back here, if you look back in like January, we didn't quite get to this area that to me would made a lot of sense for us to actually touch this upper standard deviation. So we'll just have to see with that. One second. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's go to the Monero ratio, because that's also been looking pretty nice. So we kind of like crashed a little bit down below this line here, and then we've recovered. Still basically in this channel. Overall, we're kind of just in this channel, which looks suspiciously to me like that could be kind of a bottoming pattern, right? There's like this downward sloping channel after we've come down a significant amount. This somewhat rhymes with let's go way back here to like 2020. This somewhat rhymes with what happened back here at the end of the last bear market, where Monero, we kind of had more of a wedge pattern here. You could draw this a few different ways, I guess, but ultimately there was kind of like this downward channel happening in 2019. So we might be able to say that this pattern happening now over here is somewhat similar. Because we've actually, the bear market, we've actually been going up versus Bitcoin. This low here was made at the top of the bull market. So right here, where you could say this looks kind of similar, kind of rhymes. I don't want to go take it too far or anything. That's not to say that, that we're out of the woods yet. Like we could easily come back down here to this area. But I do think that there's a good chance that the ratio is bottoming here. And that would also be somewhat congruent and corroborating with the notion that this sort of mid-cycle run might be coming towards its end. Really was happy and stoked to see things pump, even if it was just kind of, on some silly news about how the institutions and the governments are going to select our coin to go up more and pump in value, whatever. But, it's always nice to have some gains. So that's nice. Like I said, the long-term stack is still in play. I will probably be looking for opportunities to exit that stack. But I don't want to be, I don't want to be too finger on the trigger at the moment yet. I again, I would like to see things develop in a way that's like long-term, easy. You know, the signals get mixed and then they start signaling down, even though price is still going up. And this trends for a few weeks. It's kind of like in December and January when we like slowly over the course of say 2 to 4 weeks, we said, hey, things are clear now. Like things are turning. And even though the sentiment was terribly bearish, we were getting back in the market because it just like it was clear to us to do that. I would love if the end of this run had something similar to that. It doesn't always happen like that, but anyways, you know, fingers crossed for being able to make a good exit on our long-term stack, and hopefully write out what I think is going to be like sort of the last big washout before we enter into the sort of the very long-term bullish phase, which, you know, maybe would start like next year. So, oh, you know what? One more thing. Monero Tony asked me if I could go over some gold stuff today. So I'm sorry, I almost totally missed that. Gold, where are you? I know I put you somewhere. Here we go.
But Bawdy,
Okay,
maybe I missed. What were you saying though with regards to exiting your long-term stack? What were you saying? I kind of missed that point you're making.
Okay, so I sort of like in my mind I divide things into 3 separate areas. I've got the HODL, I've got the long-term trading stack, and the short-term trading stack. The short term is for like finding opportunities that like present themselves randomly and just like, all right, let's take some chances, get in the short term stack. In January, it was like everything long, right? Somewhere in like the early weeks of January, it was like get everything long and then just stay long. Lately, you know, with the way the markets have been, I wasn't too confident personally. I had some friends that were very confident that said, no, this thing's going to pump here soon. So I kept my long-term stack in play, but I pulled my short-term stack and kind of my my shitcoin positions off the table. So what I'm saying in terms of the long-term stack is that at the moment things look like they could potentially continue going up, but I'm seeing the signs of this of the potential for this mid-cycle run to end. And so what I would like to see personally is just like we saw at the end of December and early in January, where all of the macro signals started to get confused. Like first, everything was negative and everything was down like November. And then the signals, like all the macro signals, all our corroborating cross-check kind of stuff started to get confused. And so to me, that was a sign that things were actually turning around. So even though there was sort of like massive bearish sentiment, we were getting back in the markets in December and early January because the signals went from confused to positive, even though everyone was still bearish and even though price was still pretty low. So that was like an easy, like that was, how can I put this? There was a very long-term change of trend, a very large macro change of trend with a lot of corroborating evidence, even though price was still quite low. That was a really easy moment to get back into the markets and to make really solid play. Now, I would love if that happened again here. Now, I mean, obviously, you know, the ideal would just to be going up forever, but then we'll have inflation. So did you really go up if everyone has, you know, a lot more money too? And right. So I do expect that this year is going to see some kind of big washout. Before that happens, or as the top is sort of incipient, I would really love to see the same kind of thing in reverse that we saw from December and January. I want to see all of these macro signals turn around, get confused, and then start becoming negative, even as sentiment is positive and bullish, and even as markets are basically close to their peaks. That's just like such an easy decision to make in a trading sense, and you can basically pull. I'm going to be looking for opportunities to pull my long-term stack. But my finger's not on the trigger right now. I mean, obviously things can turn around at any moment and it doesn't have to play out like that, right? Like it was great in December when things did play out like that. But things don't always have to play out like that. So anyways, that was my rant there on the long-term stack. So
makes sense. And now you said you look at gold.
Yeah, Monero Tony had asked me to look at this. I know I'm kind of running a little bit long here, so we'll try and make this quick. So we have gold here against a bunch of different assets. So we've got gold versus the dollar index, gold versus silver, and gold versus the S&P. So we can just quickly take a look at the very long term. This is the weekly on gold. Maybe you could take a look at the monthly on gold. I don't like how this chart is kind of dirty, you know, whatever. We can do these descriptive statistics as well. Actually, we'll mute them for just a moment. Right now, there's kind of like this rising triangle that's been forming for like, I don't know, basically the entire modern monetary history, like 1979. So yeah, this chart is a little bit dirty in terms of how you draw these lines here on the bottom. We're kind of at a point that, I mean, the gold price doesn't look too great, especially in light of how the Dixie is the Dixie is looking like it wants to kind of make a run to the upside. Maybe not immediately, but that does give me some concerns for the gold price. So that doesn't necessarily have to play out immediately, but I mean, we have kind of like lost some of these. We're very close to losing like a very key resistance level. This spot right here is pretty key, and obviously, kind of where the closes were for the weekly here. You've got these shooting stars that happened, and I think we talked about those. This particular shooting star back in May. So I couldn't say that this chart looks super bullish at the moment, but again, gold is one of these assets. It's kind of like Monero. It just sometimes it'll pump right when we didn't expect it, which is kind of again why I don't really trade gold. I just sort of use it. I hodl it as a means of storing value. So that's just gold versus US dollar. Another thing we can do is look at gold versus the dollar index. Because it kind of gives us the idea of how gold is performing relative to the Dixie. Because again, as the Dixie goes up, gold tends to have negative price pressure. So in my mind, the very simple, like this is a very large monthly chart. So we're looking at a decade-long chart here. But the large structure here is this sort of sideways triangle. And ultimately, since gold price is going to be pegged to the printing of, the infinite printing of money, really the exponential printing of money. When you say infinite printing, it's like, oh my God, we're going to hyperinflate tomorrow. So anyways, the exponential printing of money. Ultimately, this chart's going to break to the upside. It kind of has to, just like mathematically, if they're going to print more money and not have the system die, like gold eventually has to break to the upside and go here. But, we could be looking at 2026 before that happens, maybe 2025. This is a long-term chart. So right now, gold kind of peaked out at the spot you would expect it to. So we'll just have to see. I mean, it could hypothetically fall relative to the Dixie, which would imply that the Dixie is going up potentially, and then gold is going down, but it's going down even more than you would think. Again, I'm not like, I don't have necessarily any big opinions on where the gold chart is in the short term. This kind of looks, you can kind of see the curve here happening like that. I don't know, like I don't have any good TA on that for you. We could maybe look at, like I said, the continuously calculated descriptive statistics. Basically, there's not much here. And this is a result of what happens when you have exponential money printing in an asset, which just kind of like goes up always forever. These standard deviations and whatnot, the moving averages, you almost never touch those. And the same thing happens in the stock market. One thing that was crazy is that the purple line here actually like nailed the peak in 2011. That's the concept behind the purple line is standard deviation. But it's like a derivative of that helps you to get higher up. Okay, so gold and silver, we can look at the gold and silver ratio, and we got kind of a similar thing here. It's on a shorter time frame, so this is from 2020, the peak when silver like crashed to like ridiculously low, unreasonable prices that you couldn't actually buy physical silver for, just the paper silver. Anyway, so we've got this again sideways triangle, and gold and silver looks kind of like it's it's sort of making this constraining volatility, which acts kind of like a spring, right? You're compressing the spring, and eventually the spring's going to blow to one side or the other. My guess is that this is going to blow towards the upside. In terms of the way that things could play out, like macro stuff, if we get any kind of major crashes back to the lows of like September, October, this thing might actually crash down here for a second and then do one of these. Like that would totally make sense. But on the long-term basis, like in terms of 2024, 2025, I very much expect that this thing will go towards the upside. So sorry about that. I got a cat in here. Anyway, so this thing could totally is totally going to probably blow to the upside at some point here. But we just don't know. I mean, likely that's what it's going to do. So that's basically what gold looks like for the meantime. I guess we could look at the S&P 500 as well. Also kind of looks potentially like this kind of sideways triangle here. But sorry, Monerotopia, I wish I had like more clarity on the gold chart here for you. Maybe I can come up with something if I'll try and scrutinize it a little bit more this week and see if I can come up with any theories here. But yeah, that's the price report. So any questions, guys?
Glad to see that XMR BTC ratio coming back up nicely.
Yeah,
It dipped
100%.
there pretty hard.
Yeah, funny how it dipped. Was that like right before they announced the delisting or right after?
I think it was right before.
Yeah, I mean, I do tend to think that those are I mean, I don't know exactly what their mechanisms are now at this point. I assume that they've acquired a stack of Monero that they didn't have simply because they haven't been shutting down withdrawals like they have previously. So I assume that they've got kind of a reasonable enough stack of Monero to kind of play some games with it. So it also could just be because Bitcoin was punching, doing crazy stuff, going, hitting big gains.
Good stuff, man. As always, you got a lot of fans, a lot of people praising your price report.
You go,
Thanks.
Bawdy.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome job as usual.
All right.
All right.
Thanks,
Sweet, man. We'll keep it moving.
All right.
All
Talk
right,
to you guys
buddy.
later.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bawdy.
Bawdy.
Bye.
Awesome.
I guess we're
Cheers.
gonna go ahead into the dev segment.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
let's do it.
All right, let's go.
And now for the Monero development segment.
Oh,
Hey.
dude.
DGoon, how's it going, man?
Hello.
How's it going? Going pretty good.
What's new? I feel like it's been a long time.
Yeah, I just got back from California, so it was it's been
Okay.
it was nothing compared to y'all. Y'all like literally are in a different country every Monerotopia, so it feels a little bit. I can't complain. I'll say that y'all are literally globetrotting. So me going across my country is no big deal.
Yeah, that's awesome too. Traveling in general is awesome. We just, decided to ask Monerokon to take another short trip.
We need a little break. Yeah, man.
Had to while you were
got
out.
Luke Parker, right?
What's
Oh,
up?
go ahead, Tux.
Oh, sorry. I just said you had to while you were still out.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah,
right?
You're
Why
close
not?
to it. Anyway, go
All right.
ahead.
So, DGoon, this is I assume this is on full membership proofs.
Of course, it's the only thing I've been thinking about for the past week. And
All right.
you have an interview with Luke about this? I wasn't able to find it on the channel. Is it going to be released?
Yeah, it's gonna be released.
Yeah, at Monerokon, obviously we spoke to Luke on a Monerotopia episode, a live Monerotopia episode. He jumped on a Monerokon, and then I interviewed him after that with him and Sarang and Aram, which was interesting.
Oh wow!
Aram is from the Firo project. So that was an interesting interview. But yeah, so I think
we're releasing them one by one. We released MIDI Poet. We'll do Arctic Minds.
Yeah, it'll be coming out soon.
Oh, okay.
And
Also,
then
I was looking for it last night. I was like, man, I couldn't find it.
No, we're releasing them one by one, so
Yes.
people can, embrace that.
Yeah, we didn't want to put it all out at once.
Oh.
So
Sorry, that makes sense. But
Take
yeah,
it
I'm
away.
super excited. But yeah, I have been amazed. Yeah, sorry, I've just been thinking about this for the past week because it came seemingly out of nowhere. But basically, Luke Parker and friends evolved Monero. You probably heard about it now, like Doug mentioned, it's about full membership proofs. So basically, just to give you like who is Luke Parker? Like I said, Doug has had interviews with Luke Parker before. They are a coder. I will let you see how they describe them. So they are a developer and informal cryptographer. The informal cryptographer part is very interesting. I would like to see more what they mean about that. They got into a little bit, but I'd love to see more what it means to do that because they put some amazing cryptographic work together. Basically, Luke Parker is a longtime Monero dev. They've worked on Sarai Dex. And recently at Monerokon, they had, I would say, one of the biggest changes to Monero, potential changes, right? Like one of the biggest changes to Monero, I guess one of the biggest jumps in Monero have seen, because in the past, if you go back to Monero's past, usually most progression has been incremental, right? You'll go to ring signatures, then you got ring CT, then you got like bulletproof. It was sort of like it made sense about how the progression went, but as someone who's like studies Monero's history and development, this seemed to come. It didn't come out of nowhere. Lucas was working on this for a while, but this is one of the most incremental changes I've seen about Monero. We'll get into what that change is. So pretty much at Monerokon, which is this big event that Doug emceed, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
emceed on the first day. Luke was considering making this announcement at Monerotopia, but he wanted to stick to the Sarai stuff, and I think he wanted to bake it a little bit more before he went on stage with it. So super exciting though that he did it there at Monerokon, and yeah, it's just amazing because Luke has been working on Sarai, right? Like, I mean, that's a monumental project in and of itself, and the fact that he kind of did this on the side is just amazing. Like, the brain on this guy is just insane, and I don't fully understand it. I understand the basics, but my understanding is this. This isn't really a replica of what Zcash has done.
No,
It's a different path towards the same end in terms of having a full anonymity set, but it's not copying. Not that there'd be anything wrong with that, but it's just it's unique in the way in which Luke has devised this, and my understanding it's using bulletproofs to get us there. But you could get into that. But yeah, I just want to make the comment that obviously always been impressed and very much impressed with Luke. But the fact that this was a side thing that he was working on while working on Sarai, which is an amazing project to begin with, for those who aren't familiar with that, I mean, that's coming down the pipe as well. That's going to be a DEX that will be released soon, similar to Thorchain with liquidity pools. I mean, all that stuff is tremendous as well. And then in the meantime, Luke subtly on the side, figures out full membership proofs for Monero, and basically, my understanding is kind of like actually devised how it can be done, not just talking in theory, but actually came up with a plan of how to implement it. But go ahead, take it away.
No, I mean, you basically just summarized my entire presentation. It is insane that as a side project, Luke did this. Like, if you study the history of zero knowledge proofs, this isn't, like, generally speaking, in the Monero and zero knowledge proof history, you've had two main implementations. You've had Zcash and Firo, and they've been working on their full membership proof. Oh, Firo's been doing like sort of zero knowledge stuff, has been doing sort of full membership ish stuff, but Zcash has been the main dominator, and they've spent millions of dollars, right? Like millions of dollars, almost a decade of work getting to the full membership proof. And it's crazy that Luke just got it from Monero in a side project. Like, I just think people understand what that, like, Zcash has literally had like millions of dollars spent on research, people, I think 10 years of research going back all the way to the original stuff. And Luke just did it as a side, like it's just a casual side thing as one person. It seems too good to be true. Luke is amazing. This is a wild thing. But let's get more into it. Sorry, I keep saying that. But basically, my understanding of I linked to Luke's talk at the end of this. Basically, Luke found this paper that made full membership proof using bulletproofs efficient, because before they weren't really efficient to do enough to do full membership proofs, right? And for anyone watching, a full membership proof means that most of the transactions on Monero blockchains can be decoys. Right now, to give an example, you get 16 decoys at most, right? You get 16 decoys as a network protocol rule. Full membership proofs would allow you to have, I think, every transaction up in Monero's history, essentially. Thousands, hundreds of thousands, probably, maybe a million. I'm not too sure, but you're going from 16 to something that's 1,000 plus. And Luke's doing this efficiently. And the crazy part is that this paper came out, I believe it was released 6 months ago ish. So when this paper was released, Luke was able to read it, understand it, and use it to make full membership proofs on Monero efficient enough to be acceptable. And seemingly out of nowhere to me, I have been following the GitHub report, but I didn't see it coming this fast, essentially. And Luke not only had the theory behind how to do this to get full membership proofs, something that I believe Zcash has right now, and I don't know if Firo has pretty large group sets too, but I'm not sure Firo even has full membership proof as of this moment. But
no,
so they have so they have Luke pretty much has this summary here, and they not only have the theory, right, which is one person, 6 months, has a theory for it. They actually have code implementations for majority of the work, rough sketches of it, right? And they've actually released that on GitHub in the thread. So a majority of the work, majority of the preliminary work is done, right? This wasn't just a theory that Luke had, that Luke was like, oh, I think this is possible. Because you've had that forever, right? People showing up and say, oh, we can get full membership this way, do this. Luke showed up, did the work, and actually wrote code that implements a large portion of the rough parts, right? Of course, it needs to be reviewed. Of course, it needs to be, peer review, implemented different ways, be talked to around the devs. This is amazing, right? Like, I just want to be sure to put it in perspective for people who aren't, following the tech, how amazing it is Luke came out with full membership proofs pretty much in 6 months with not just himself. He had people helping him, which I'll get into later. Someone you would probably recognize by now helping him and stuff like that. But it's just amazing, right? Any questions, Doug? Am I getting the gravity of the situation together?
Yeah, no, I think you are. Yeah, for sure. No question. I would definitely recommend people check out the interviews that we had from Monerokon with Luke, what's his name from the Firo team. Is some interesting back and forth taking place there, kind of in real time, because they were hanging out there at the conference discussing these issues. So it was like being in a Monero dev chat in person,
in real
watching
life.
them kind of figure this out on the fly. And then obviously they're going to continue conversations, but it was kind of cool because we caught them in moments of realization as they're discussing. My understanding, it looks like Firo might be able to implement this faster than Monero. Maybe not, but they might, especially given that they're a smaller project and can kind of move faster. And it's not analogous. Firo is not completely analogous to Monero, but they that is a possibility. But yeah, definitely recommend checking out those interviews for more insights. And I'm sure at some point we'll have Luke on again. DGoon, maybe you can join me on that, so you could ask some more technical questions. But yeah, no, I think you're definitely expressing the gravity of this situation for sure. Like you're doing a great job. Keep going.
Because Zcash. Zcash has been working on this since 2012, I believe, and they just got full membership proof trustless 2 years ago. So it took them a decade to get something similar to this, and it's just like, man, this is obviously Luke stood on the shoulders of people that came before him, but people are talking about getting this within 5, 6, 7 years. That was the timeline people have been given for this, and Luke gave very good reasons. This will probably be in Seraphis if it's successful, because doing it after Seraphis would make things harder, right? So I think they're going to bonus in Seraphis. I think Seraphis has a timeline of, I don't want to 3 years maybe, right? No. That's the ones I've heard. No more than 3, maybe probably shorter than that in my experience. It's just crazy.
I think sooner than that. Yeah.
And he all did it in a maid outfit, so it's definitely serving the Monero community. Do you know how this was funded? Did Luke just do this? Was it I didn't see a grant or anything?
I do believe it was funded. I'm not exactly sure. I don't want to misattribute or anything, but I do think he was funded for his development on the side for sure. Yeah.
Was that a magic grant or?
I might be wrong. I'm not sure. So I don't
okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I was this is pound for pound one of the biggest cryptographic advancements that I've seen Monero. Right, just one person doing this, less than 6 months, getting it out, getting in front of people is amazing. And just what this means, right? Right now, Monero's biggest flaw is going to be its ring signatures. If you've watched it, any show, every time there's a bug in Monero, it's never the amounts being revealed. Oh my God. 9 months?
Yeah, that's what Monero Bull's saying. Monero Bull, if you want to jump on the viewers on stage segment to throw in some more comments with regards to full membership proofs, please do.
This is gonna be out in 9. Does that mean implemented in 9 months? That's just crazy. I don't know what.
I think Monero Bull's saying that Seraphis was 9 months away, but now if they add full membership proofs, it's going to add maybe another 3 to 6 months. Let's say 6 months, right, to that deadline.
God.
So yeah, we're a little less than 2 years away. I'd say 2 years. Right? Let's play it safe.
Yeah.
Year and a half.
It's a big thing.
This is a massive thing, and just to come out, oh yeah, we'll have it out in nine-ish months, 2 years. I'm like, when other coins take decades to get, like, it's just like I just like I don't know. It feels too good to be true, but this is amazing. So what this means is, right now, to reiterate, Monero's biggest, companies will have nothing left at this point. The biggest thing people have against Monero, it's not full membership proofs, and then maybe set 16, but like literally due to the work of these great people, we're going to thousands, possibly millions membership proof sizes, which at that point, like, all the fun will be gone. I mean, maybe not all of it, because people just make up stuff,
Mm-hmm.
But the majority of the technical, reasonable, like any doubts anyone might have is crazy, right? And once again, we're going from 16 to thousands of membership proofs, and that's the biggest attack vector that Monero has. Every bug or every attack vector has always led back to ring signatures. The address has never been violated as far as there's some small things, and then the amount has also had no major issues. It's always time after time been ring signatures, but with this, I doubt that will be a major issue anymore. I just want to put some warnings behind this. I'm super excited. Everyone's super excited about this, but as Luke said in his talk, it needs to be more reviewed, more worked through. Nothing's guaranteed, and things are moving at breakneck speeds. Because I mean, like, 9 months to implement this as an estimate is bonkers, right? Like, to have this out in less than 2-3 years is crazy. No other project has had that, right? Because if you look at Fyro, for example, Fyro's are working on stuff, and they have Serang working on, I believe, full-time, maybe not full-time, but they've had also decades of work getting to this point, and it's just wild to see this happen. Are there any questions? I feel like I'm just keep reiterating how I still haven't fully processed what it means to just overnight have, not overnight, but like for Luke Parker to come out with something like that. Are there any questions anyone has?
No, that's like really exciting. Like, he really had a slam dunk there. I would personally suggest double time, just because of how long, like, things take and people don't realize it. But even if it was like, let's say, a year and a half before this was fully implemented, that's still crazy time for something like this. That's really impressive, and that's really not that long.
No, it's not. Like, other projects take a decade to get this. We're doing it, or not we. I didn't do any of this. The dev team, Luke and company, are doing this in a matter of months, max 2 years. Is crazy. I'm literally just I haven't wrapped my mind around how this is possible. I get that the paper was there, but like how, like, I mean, Monero has some of the best devs. These guys are. It's like trying to like watching like Michael Jordan at his peak, and you're just like, how is this like?
They're like actual
possible?
Geniuses.
Yeah, actual like legitimately geniuses who care about Monero, love Monero. I mean, these guys aren't paid enough. I don't know how much he was paid, if he was paid, but these guys, I mean, it's just, yeah. I want to keep making. This is amazing. I think hopefully we'll have Luke on. Like I said, Doug has already had an interview with him in the past about Sarai. He also commented on the Morenos project, or the issue when Monero had like the NFT issue. I believe Luke had an interview with Doug about that also. So, I mean, Luke is an amazing guy, very humble. In my opinion, too humble. I mean, this is God tier. I haven't seen anything like this in the cryptography space and since like Satoshi white paper, and maybe like, I guess, like the Grin paper that came out talking about privacy text. This is the biggest privacy investment I've seen in the space in a while. But yeah, we're gonna have I'm gonna wrap it up. I feel like I've just keep reiterating myself. So we're gonna have a little Monero history quiz. Which Monero dev also helped Luke write code for this issue? So you've probably seen this person before, but I'm gonna let y'all think about who it is. You probably know them. If you've been paying attention, you would know who this person is. Give you a couple more seconds. The question again is,
pick me.
Tuxedo, what do you think?
Oh, I already know what it is.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, which Monero dev also helped Luke write code for this issue? The answer is going to be Tevador. Tevador was on the GitHub issues that this there is walking through, and also has been working on zero knowledge proofs for a while. I believe even before the GitHub issue? Question mark. I don't know. These guys just put out stuff, and I'm always trying to keep up with them. Like, But like
Tevador is, I think, most known for implementing random X with Howard Chu. By the way, that's not a picture of Tevador. That's Need Muddy 90. Just for anybody who's Tevador is fully anonymous as far as I know. I mean, he's been on the show, but he remained anonymous.
Yes, and also Tevador also did the random X stuff. Like literally, code Tevador written is in Tor, I believe, as of now, like running in Tor, which is crazy. And Luke Parker comment, the numbers I gave were 700. Is that 777 million?
Yeah.
Am I? We can still do better. Of course, Luke is like, yeah, I got 777 million. For reference, we have 16 right now as a standard. 16. This dude's not getting paid? Oh my.
Luke has yet to receive any funding. I'm sure we'll see some funding requests coming around at some point, and if we do, I'm sure it will be very quickly funded with zeal from the Monero community for sure.
I'm sorry, I'm just like, not for free, but unfunded, Luke just as a side project, like came up and got Monero potentially, right? We're gonna put some caveat. 777 million decoy sizes. Just I'm sorry. I'm gonna stop. I just keep reiterating. This is. Yeah, maybe we can. If you have time, we can have a Luke on so he can talk about it. So before I just like.
Yeah, Luke, please jump on if you can. Tux, if you want to put the link there for him to jump on as a guest. Mm-hmm. And if Luke wants to join us, by all means, we'll certainly.
Let me grab that.
But yeah, I'm gonna wrap up before I feel like I keep reiterating myself. I'm gonna wrap up. Luke, this is a presentation where Luke, I guess, revealed his. So this is the first time that I knew how far along it was going. I saw the GitHub issues, like, wait, work's being done on it. This is where Luke presents the real numbers behind it, the history, how he got here, and the implementations moving forward. And I just like. This is amazing. Like for free, within 6 months, Luke has literally solved Monero's biggest insecurity, biggest bug, biggest FUD thing that people talk about. And literally, I don't know, like it's going to be tough for other coins to even. It's tough to compete now, right? If you look at the coin market cap, but now I don't even know. I'm still getting the gravity situation together, but this is amazing. Oh,
all right,
okay.
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah. There are people much more in it. Yeah. Sorry.
We'll see if Luke jumps on. Otherwise, yeah, we'll keep moving, and I'm sure this will be a continuous, discussed topic.
Yeah, evolving. I would love to hear that talk. Because you had people literally, two of the biggest projects in a zero knowledge space talking to each other after such a monumentous reveal is crazy. I'm so looking forward to when that releases. But like I said, Doug has other videos, so watch the other videos. Luke is no stranger. Doug, once again, if something happens, Doug has a video on it. Like, it just categorically a true statement. If it happened in aerospace, Doug has a video covering it. So I think the one covering this will be out soon. The Luke Parker has been on Monerotopia Talk, I think like at least 3 times as far as I know, maybe even more. But I don't know what any of that means, Luke. I love you. It's amazing. I don't know what they aren't either. I don't know who. Yeah, but sorry. Luke made a comment if you're watching over audio. Luke made a comment. They aren't either for either Groodle proofs nor FCMP. But yeah, beyond my
full chain membership proofs.
Yeah, full chain membership proofs.
What is Groodle?
But yeah, all right. Let's.
I'm done.
So yeah, we'll move it. Thank you, DGoon. That was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
People are asking questions. Luke, could this be implemented on a fork like how narrow as a test flight? Yeah, we'll see. Luke, so super cool. Luke is in the chat right now. Maybe we get him to jump up. Let's keep moving. Tux, you want to move on?
All right. Yep. Let's keep going. Thank you, DGoon. Awesome, exciting stuff.
Yeah, stick around if you can. Luke might jump on, and then if you're around, we'll bring you up.
All right. Thanks. So we're going to go straight to, well, he was in here. dMartian was in here. It looks like he's gone.
Oh, no. We lost dMartian?
Yep. Oh wait, there he is. There he is. All right, let's go ahead and do the guest segment.
Yes.
All right, let's go.
The Monerotopia Guest Segment is sponsored by Cake Wallet. Store, send, receive, and exchange your Monero and Bitcoin safely on iOS and Android too. Cake Wallet is open source, and you always control your own keys.
dMartian,
Hi there.
Hey.
what's going on, man?
Oh, I'm listening to this last segment, and it's just making me feel like I could have been in two places at once. But I'm glad that at least I could have been over at Porkfest and tried to be a Monero Sherpa for everyone there. But I took away a whole lot as well that I think it was a whole lot of insights for me, and hopefully it will help other people as well. And I'm in awe about this last segment too, because I'm thinking about just when I first heard the news, I saw the presentation from Luke Parker. I just realized again, over and over again, all roads bring these talented people to Monero, and the cypherpunks, the developers, even talking about the traffic analysis spike that we saw. I think we can fudge some numbers and say pretty easily, yeah, that might be explainable from Porkfest and Monerokon. But you could also look back at when we had several PhDs distill traffic analysis in 2020, I think. If you look it up, fingerprinting a flood, they break it down so anyone can really understand it. But they show you that we have really bright minds coming from all over the place in so many different angles, and it's amazing seeing what this all comes together towards. And as seeing that being a Monerokon, Monero focused type of venture, I got to go to Porkfest, which was not a crypto event. It was crypto friendly. It had crypto segments for people to learn, but it wasn't specifically crypto, and that's what was very different for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me give a little bit of a backstory. So obviously, I was headed to Monerokon. The one thing that I felt bad about, I love the fact that I was going to Monerokon in Prague, super excited about it. But I was a little in the back of my mind. I was a little upset that I'd be missing Porkfest because I've gone the last 2 years, and it's an amazing event, as I'm sure dMartian will explain. And so I reached out to, I think I put out a tweet, right? Would anybody be down to kind of go on my behalf and do the gratuitous coffee thing and just kind of hold it down? And dMartian reached out and somehow made it happen. He drove up to New York on his way to Porkfest in New Hampshire. He stopped by our place. It was like around 11 p.m. at night, the night before we were leaving for Monerokon. We gave him all the coffee and supplies, and he headed on his way and had a kick-ass time there. So cheers to you, man, for making that. That was amazing that you pulled that off on such short notice. And it sounds like it really went well. And I'm so happy that you were there. Like I felt, obviously, even if you didn't go, Monero is organically being adopted there at Porkfest, as I'm sure you'll get into. But I wanted somebody from Monero Talk, Monerotopia there, and you pulled it off, man. So thank you for that. Oh, you're welcome. I was glad to be there, and I felt like I was able to be useful. So that's good. Yeah. So give us the rundown. I mean, what did you see Monero being used? I'm sure you did. I've seen it in years past, kind of being used by different vendors. But what was your overall take with regards to?
Oh, I have that clip, Monero, by the way, so I can play it whenever you want me to.
Yeah, sure. This would be a good time to play that. All
right.
Walking down the Silk Road, found some homebrewed wine. Hi. Did we take Monero?
Yes, you do.
Okay, wonderful. Oh, it's right here. Let's do it.
Yeah, that very much, that was not candid. I, of course, want to make sure I ask people first before I film them. But it's a campsite setup. Basically, it's an event, and I wasn't really sure about what it was all about just from the website itself. It's because I think what the event is really about the participants themselves. They're the ones that really make it. And it was almost like after if the Monerotopia, the way that it's been working, showing that successful, it almost seemed like it could have been like a next step to that, because these people just they got it already. I didn't have to explain to them what Monero was. I saw people wearing Monero shirts. People were, I mean, there was more than any other shirt. Yeah, I think I saw one Zcash and then everything else was Monero. There's like at least 5 people there for that. They were accepting Monero alongside other cryptocurrencies at numerous places. There was no place that didn't accept Monero that accepted cryptocurrency. Yeah, it was I was able to go from like tent to that between the ones that were just the campsites. If I was going to places that tents that were actually selling something, any kind of commerce, I could go between maybe like 5 or 6 at a time, all of them accepting Monero for different things, completely different things. And that to me was like a bit of a like, wow, this is like the utopia. This is like the next step in the cycle. How do we figure this out? And then in addition to that, they have these things called goldbacks, which are these notes that are it's like their New Hampshire or gold back. It's backed by itself because there's gold inside the note itself, and it has some security features and whatnot. But what I found out is that the goldback guy was getting doing his exchanges with other people. He would find people with Monero because most people were buying the goldbacks with Monero. So it had the circular economy of going back and forth between these physical notes and then the electronic payments being done with Monero. I found it very interesting to see that happening because it was allowed. It seriously allowed for it to create its own circular economy within that little festival community while it existed. It didn't need the fiat. Although fiat was still the biggest used tender, I don't think it was ideal because it's not really there's no ideological gatekeeping in terms of who comes there. If you sell stuff, then you can come there and sell stuff. Some people, they just they just come to different things and they sell things. They don't know much about what's going on at the festival. But there's definitely fiat being used, but a lot of people are there really encouraged using things that aren't. And that was really exciting to see. And the fact that it was so normal, as well as using non-custodial wallets. I didn't need to teach people this stuff. They already knew it. So seeing that already up and running was really, really big for me because it wasn't even like a crypto thing. It was just, hey, you accept Monero? Yes, we get it. I could go into a rant. I could explain things, but they're all about it. So which is pretty cool. I did see at least. Yeah.
Like you said, I mean, this isn't a Monero conference. This isn't a privacy tech. This is just it's a Liberty conference, really.
Right.
Or not even a conference. It's a Liberty event and a Liberty get together. People that believe in these basic ideals of liberty, and to just see Monero naturally blossom there is very promising. That always excited me about Porkfest, and it's exciting to hear that that's still the case, and it sounds like more than ever that people are using it there. So that's amazing.
Do you have a count of how many people total, like little vendors, little shops were accepting Monero?
I didn't keep exact count because there were some vendors that would have it listed on their table or their window or whatever. But a lot of people accepting Monero didn't have it even listed. So I stopped keeping count because I would find some that would have it and some I'd be like, okay, how many of these other tents? I could go around checking, but I didn't count. But there was I would say if you were to guess, like, are there 40 people here, 40 places that accept Monero here? I would say that's a good guess.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
one place to send your Monero.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And to that extent, there were some things that people could learn from. I think that's where I was able to be a Monero Sherpa the most. They had all the concepts. I didn't need to explain that. It was just last minute mechanics. It was just about getting that wallet to go smoothly. I think the most enlightening moment for me, because I've thought before that cryptocurrency payments, they're not going to be ever able to catch up or be equivalent to the credit card payments without some real tricks or something else that we'd have to apply. But I bought a pizza at this regular pizza. It was like a food truck pizza spot. Lots of traffic, lots of people coming in. I met someone that the person at the register said, "Oh, I'm going to pay in Monero." okay. The person says they put in the price on their device. I scan it. They watch me. It show up on my device. I hit okay, and then it says it's sent, and then boom, it's done. That was so smooth and so seamless and so quick that I was like, wow, this is really, if this could be as smooth like that for everybody, this is really a competitor for electronic payments anywhere. I'd never seen it go that smoothly with a stranger like that before. But there's no reason why it couldn't be. There's no reason why the other issues that I saw with people that they didn't have a wallet that they knew how to work quite right in terms of requesting the amounts, or it was a little cumbersome, or connection issues, or this and that. There was various last little bits of friction at the end that would cause some people to take some time to get the transaction to work. But I'm really hopeful after seeing that particular example, seeing that this it could easily be electronic payments for the future with zero confirmations, zero conf transfers, for when those kind of transactions are applicable, when you're allowed to, when we should be doing those kind of things versus other times when probably don't want to do zero comp transactions.
Did you personally run into issues with your wallet and whatnot, or was it pretty smooth for you?
It wasn't. No, it wasn't me. I didn't have the issues. It was mostly on other people's ends. Sometimes connection issues. So one, for example, is I think probably many people can relate to is the syncing. You open up your wallet and it's syncing. When's it going to stop syncing? There's no telling. You're sitting here waiting. I hope that happens soon. That's the kind of issue. So if once they got connection to my phone via the hotspot, then it synced real quick. But if there was a nice way for it to say, hey, your connection's not going through, then that's the problem. We're not syncing right now. Then that would help them move forward, or at least say, hey, let's stop trying to do this. Because when people get hung up like that, they get that friction. That's really what will hold people. That's what prevents people from going to use it. But at least at this kind of conference, people seem to have the ideological goodwill to put more effort into these kind of things. So they're great for fleshing these kind of issues out, because they're willing to give it a few extra minutes, to give it that extra bit of time to make it work. But in the process, we're seeing where their friction is, and hopefully can get that feedback to where people need it, so that we can eliminate it for future users.
Yeah, and for people that don't know, I mean, Porkfest is kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's in New Hampshire. It's up in the mountains, and there's no Wi-Fi there. I mean, people are just using the cellular network. So the fact that it works well enough, and there's a lot of people there competing for internet. It's nice to see that it is able to function in that scenario. Obviously, there's a lot of room for improvement, but you are able to use Monero in that scenario, and people were in fact doing that. So that's nice, and that's promising.
Yeah, I remember similar issues happening at Monerotopia. It was pretty hard to sync, for me especially, because of my data was weird. I was on roaming or something, but then a lot of us were trying to use the same Wi-Fi network, and it was causing a bunch of hangups and stuff. So yeah, I guess that'd be the main friction point in that regard.
Yeah, I'm hoping that those things, because that's super valuable for beta testing, or just being able to, when you do that, it might happen for you, but hopefully that information's going somewhere that it can be used, because otherwise it's going nowhere and people can't see it.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is you got to show up fully synced, right? You show up at one of these conferences and you didn't open your wallet for the last 3 weeks, and you're there opening it. It's gonna be a bad experience. So yeah, Monero's not really there yet in terms of complete usability for noobs, right? It does take people to put a little effort and pre-thought in, right?
Yeah, I think that that Porkfest, that was a perfect venue for this level of advancement that we're at, to see the next level that it needs to get to, and for the next wave of people. Because this is some people say that Monero maybe it's just for certain things, just dark net money. I don't think so at all. I think that's really important for it to be available for the wider economy, for it to be valuable. Maybe for its own existence anywhere, but especially for people that need it most, and for people to have faith in it, the way that they have faith in fiat has value. You need to see that the Monero economy also is something that people see. Okay, if things go wrong, what am I going to do? I'm going to get rid of all my Monero because that's just dark net money. No, you want to be like, oh, I got Monero. I can buy food with that. I can talk to my neighbors or people that I have this alternative economy with, because whatever system I'm working in isn't working right. But I already know there's this other system that's able to use Monero, and it's able to help save me, give me an alternative freedom from whatever's going wrong somewhere else.
Yeah, totally, man. When we went to Porkfest the first time, I wasn't really sure what I was going to run into, and I had to go there because I was like, if people aren't using Monero here, because I knew of Porkfest, and I knew a lot of the early Bitcoiners kind of came out of Porkfest. I was like, if people aren't using Monero here, that's going to be a real problem, because I mean that just means that the early adopters, those that truly understand the value proposition of crypto, right? These libertarians, the Porkfest people, the people even pre-crypto were looking to use, alternative forms of money outside of fiat, right? Gold coins and things like that. If they weren't using Monero, I would have been really down and out on Monero. But I showed up and they were. And so I think it's just very, very bullish and promising to see that those that understand the true value proposition of digital cash the most are opting in and using Monero. And like you said, it's not just for dark markets. It's for people that want to just transfer value without surveillance and without having to use fiat cash.
Yeah,
Last guy was mentioning perfect opportunity to plug the Monero Nodo with your ability to run a secure light wallet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that would solve that issue for the most part. Or
Right.
like some people were suggesting next year, maybe at Monerotopia, we if I come, I'd definitely do this. I'd bring down like just a computer, a dedicated system that's just running a node that's tied to the local network, so people connect to the local network instead of having to go out to the internet and use all the bandwidth. You can just connect to the local one. It's nice and fast. And someone could do that at Porkfest for sure.
You will be at the next Monerotopia, my man, for sure, and you will be.
I hope so.
Yeah.
There's no way.
So now that I've been and you've been, here's one question that I've been just pondering for a little while, and I'd like to get your thoughts. Is with this festival, I noticed that I could be boring. I don't need to explain all this stuff, and people were led to Monero anyways because of something that they believe in, something that they're aware of. Maybe it's their apprised to the problems, or they have different mentalities. It seems like that could be the main key for people to do what's best for themselves, to know, hey, I want tools like Monero. Is that something that you think is a case that might provide opportunity? And okay, maybe people need to have just the way to lead people towards solutions like Monero is to help them understand things that people at this festival like Porkfest understand.
I'm not sure. I kind of missed the question.
So people, if people are to do what's hopefully maybe is in their best interest, is find tools that make them more free, more liberal, get them like Monero. Yeah. Is there something that could be done to lead them there by helping them with a shift of mentality, different knowledge, different awareness of political atmosphere, or ideologically, that most people don't have, that they do have at Porkfest?
Yeah, I mean, I think Porkfest, it's libertarians, right? At the end of the day, and I think the libertarian movement and the Libertarian Party is growing. Look at RFK, right? Did he speak at Porkfest, by the way? Did that happen? I know.
He did. Yeah, he absolutely did. Yeah.
Okay. So I think he's indicative, right, of this liberty kind of going mainstream again, right? It used to be, right? It's how this country was founded, but I think it hasn't been as popular of a topic as in the past. And the Libertarian Party has been niche, but I do feel like with COVID and people realizing the fiat system, right, that they're libertarianism and these ideas are starting to go a little bit mainstream, and so I think that maybe that's how it happens, right? So we see these people as the early adopters, the people that really understand the value proposition and the importance of digital cash. That group I see getting larger over time. I do think the Libertarian Party or movement, even maybe it doesn't even mean that people have to join the Libertarian Party or become libertarians, but these ideas are kind of leaking into the Republican Party and the Democratic Party as well. They're starting to grab onto these ideas because they're realizing that this is what the people want. This is what the average Joe wants. So I do see there being a growing sector there of people that will actually appreciate the need for digital cash. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. I think like what we can do is just to continue to spread the idea of digital cash and making people realize the importance of it. We're certainly seeing with CBDCs, right? I feel like there's a large sector of the United States that's now become aware of that, right? We've seen mainstream politicians talking about how the fear that CBDCs are going to be implemented on a level where traditional cash will no longer exist. All these concepts are, I think, starting to go mainstream. And then we just need to make sure that people realize that, that there is another option that exists, and that's Monero, right? A lot of people are coming across Bitcoin, but they need to also now learn that Monero exists as the replacement for cash.
Yeah, I think people are ready. Everywhere I go, doesn't matter where I travel to, people are you say, like, are you happy? You think the government sucks? You start they're ready to go on and on about things. But the issues are intentionally made convoluted for most people. And so the convoluted pain makes for easy rain. They don't know where they don't know who's doing it per se. They don't know exactly how they're doing it, but they know that there's pain coming, and it's not right. It's coming, and they're not happy. They're ready for something else. They just don't know how to see clearly what the problems are in certain ways and how to find solutions. Libertarians seem to have articulated something that helps them in that regard. And hopefully that, and whether it be libertarian values or something else, something's got to get people aware of the tyrannical kind of forces that are crushing down on us. And the idea that maybe, we don't need all our eggs in this basket of the system that doesn't seem to want to serve us.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Once again, thanks again. Thanks for going to Porkfest, and representing.
Yeah,
greatly appreciate it, especially with the short notice. That was awesome that you pulled that off.
Sure, yeah,
yeah. And I saw your clips that you're doing on Twitter. That's cool, being able to see a little bit of the inside of that conference. Super awesome.
Yeah. I'm probably posting more stuff about it. I got some more.
All right,
okay.
Let's move it. I see. We have some people we have Alaska Aina on. I think he might want to jump up. I don't know if there's anybody else. I don't know if Luke never jumped up, but I don't know if he's still in the chat. Luke, if you're there, please join us. Tux, you want to move on to viewers on stage and see if we got anybody?
We got the news.
Oh, we got to do news. You want to do news?
News first?
Yeah, let's run the news. And if anybody wants to jump up on stage, just come on up now, and we'll get you going soon.
All right, run the news.
Note about Luke. It says Luke needs a few more minutes.
Okay, Luke.
Okay, hopefully he'll come on.
So yes, let's run the news. That gives him some time, and then we'll get Luke up here. Fantastic.
Awesome. Let's do it.
And now for our weekly news segment.
Hey guys, welcome to the news section. This week we have a lot of things to cover. As you can see, Since Monerokon happened, Porkfest, there's just a lot of things to discuss, and some things are very important to the future of Monero. So let's get into the news section. The first thing, let's look at some pictures from Monerokon. There's Doug and Sunita. It looked like an amazing time in Prague. Then there's the Monero ATM made by digital.net, which looks very cool. The NIM project was Monerokon as well. They gave a talk on anonymous credentials with threshold issuance. Then you could have had your hoodie or whatever apparel you had, spray painted by Moneruyo. Then Luke Parker gave a talk on full chain membership proofs. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. But if you do want to have more nuance and more detailed take on full chain membership proofs, then you should definitely go and check out the dev section from this week, because they're going to go into much more detail. But essentially what it is, as far as I understand, is that they're going to get rid of ring signatures, and it's going to be a whole different system. Basically, Monero's privacy is going to be on steroids. It's going to be absolutely insane. And Luke is the guy behind it. And yeah, so you should definitely check out his video and listen to it. It is very, very specific, but hopefully that you'll understand as much as possible. Then they were talking about transactions and how big they are, but actually Monero Seraphis transactions are now 45% smaller. And they were talking about kilobytes and stuff like that. And Justin said that they took the trade-off in 2017 to accept 10 kilobytes transactions to solely hide the amount. He definitely prefers 5 to 10, of course, but even 10 would probably be worth it. But yeah, very interesting, very technical. Go check out the dev section for more details on this. But then, such as the Monerotopia at Monerokon, we have seen a lot more transactions. So we had 42,470 Monero transactions that were made. But usually the average is like 20 to 25,000. So it just doubled. Monerokon and Porkfest happening at the same time. They brought this economic activity on Monero. And yeah, so as you can see on the graph, Monerotopia had a similar spike as well. Monerokon is bigger probably because Monerokon and Porkfest happening at the same time. But yeah, during those times, just people use Monero to purchase as many things as possible, hence the spike. Then another post by Traceable about a telemation. So the telemation began last year, and Monero's inflation rate has decreased by 0.007%, and it's going to keep doing that until the sun eats the earth, as Untraceable says. The current block reward is 0.6, of course, since the telemation. And I think so the current annual inflation rate is 0.86%. Now, I think Bitcoin is 1.6% or something like that. So it's basically very, very low levels of inflation. So Monero is beyond privacy. The more you learn about Monero, you discover that it's not just about privacy. It's about so many other things. It's fast. The fees are low. The more it's used, the lower the fees. There's so many intricacies that comes with Monero. And of course, then you have the privacy, which is a huge thing. But then let's talk about privacy coins in general, right? Because we talk about Monero, so let's talk about different ones as well. Last week on the news section, we discussed Binance delisting some privacy coins, right? And some, I mean, you can't really say they're privacy coins, but but Binance reverses the decision about delisting the privacy coins in Europe, Italy, France, Spain, and Poland. Now, Monero is still going to remain delisted, but they brought back a couple of them specifically. Let's see. So Beam, XMR, Mobfire, and Zen are still included in the restrictions. But basically the rest of them, like I think Zcash, it's basically back on the platform. And then Bawdy from the price section tweeted about it, and he said, you know how MSM loudly proclaims lie as news and then retracts it later? That's what CZ Binance did with EU privacy coins to minimize the implied street cred of signaling out Monero for delisting. So it's not just Monero, it's all privacy coins, right? But then he relists fake privacy coins. And I do believe that that can be true, so that it doesn't look like he has something against Monero specifically. Oh, it's just all privacy coins, right? But then he's putting the rest back except Monero and a couple other ones. But yeah, Zcash is back, for example. Yeah, so that's very interesting. So we discussed Binance a little bit and their decision, then Kraken and the IRS ordering them to turn over its users' information. So if you're using Kraken, if you're using Binance, if you're using KuCoin, which is going to add KYC starting July 15th, you should probably look into different options, and you shouldn't use centralized exchanges at all. There's people that I keep telling them that are my friends, and they keep using Coinbase, Voyager, and all these things, and I keep telling them stop using it. There's different alternatives, but they don't care. So okay, then suffer the consequences of using centralized exchanges. But yeah, KuCoin is gonna introduce KYC, and there's different levels. Yeah, so the revised KYC verification levels and daily withdrawal limits are as follows. Finished registration, 20,000 USDT that you can withdraw. Provided basic personal information, 25,000, just a bit more. Provided photo ID and selfie, 30,000. Past facial recognition, so you're giving out your facial recognition to KuCoin, up to 1 million USDT. So it's a choice if you want to use the centralized exchanges, but personally, I choose not to. Now, Vic posted a link to Monero Town, which is basically a Monero community. You should definitely check it out. Just type monero.town and make an account and participate. It's very cool. It's like a Monero subreddit, but it has its own website. Then Robert F. Kennedy tweeted his position on Bitcoin, and he said that Bitcoin is not only a bulwark against totalitarianism and the manipulation of our money supply, it points the way towards a future in which government institutions are more transparent and democratic. Now, I wonder what his stance is on Monero, but given what he talks about with vaccines and what happened with COVID and Bitcoin, he could possibly be pro-Monero. And if he's not pro-Monero, then that would be very, very concerning, but he's pro-Bitcoin, which is a step in the right direction. Now, I'm not going to mention this too much, but it's just interesting what's happening in the world. Basically, let's bring this one actually first. A Bill Gates company released billions of mosquitoes in Florida and Texas. Malaria now in Florida and Texas for the first time in 20 years. So this says Bill Gates has a malaria vaccine almost ready. Then, yeah, of course, the malaria vaccine will also have immunity from liability if something goes wrong. So yeah, it's just crazy. The world is crazy. But I just wanted to quickly mention that. Then France has riots again. This time because a 17-year-old boy was shot by the police in Nanterre. So the whole country is in chaos right now. And there's a video of a car driving into Lidl. Oh my God, it's insane. And there's the video. Yeah, for the people watching on Twitter, and they can see the video. So it's basically a car driving into Lidl, like inside the building itself, and just a lot of people going in and looting it. So it's absolute chaos, and it just shows that, I mean, France used to be the city of love, but now it's the city of hate. So we'll see where France is going to be headed in the next couple of years. Then quick mention that Simplex, that St. Matthew created a Monero group on Simplex. Simplex is like Session, so it's private, anonymous chatting platform. So if you want to join, then you can click on the link and join the Monero group. And then, of course, another video of Biden doing something that a president should be more aware of. This time, he says that Putin is losing the war in Iraq. Now, he's been giving a lot of money to Ukraine because that's obviously where the war is happening. But this is very concerning. I don't know what is in his head, to be honest. But he's just sorry. But if he wins the next election, that's, I don't know how people can vote for him anymore. It doesn't mean that I like the other ones. but it's just my 2 cents. He's not obviously fit to be a president. Now the digital pound will be pseudonymous with a focus on privacy. Bank of England CBDC chief says. Now with this, they talk about ledgers and stuff like that. But what concerns us specifically is Newton also talked about the privacy aspect of the CBDC, claiming it would be focused on offering privacy to users and won't collect personal data. He said the bank would focus on providing the infrastructure while the private players would be responsible for the innovation. Okay, there will be no data shared with the Bank of England. We will know what transactions have happened, but we will have no data on the individual who did it. While the wallet provider would have the user data, okay, but won't have access to their transaction data. Newton claimed the Bank of England or the government wouldn't have access to any user data, and even the wallet providers with limited access to that data will need consent from the users regarding what data they can store. Interesting. I'm not sure what to really think about it. If I had the choice between Monero and digital pound, I obviously would use Monero, because just you're not going to have full privacy on the digital pound, on the digital dollar, on the digital euro. You're just not going to have full on privacy like you're going to have in Monero. And also, you don't know what they can implement inside the currency. I mean, they can tell you that you can purchase that thing. You know, you reach your meat quota for the week, so you can't buy any more meat because of the environment and blah, blah. Or you can get more gas in your car because you've already gotten what you can in 1 week. Or negative interest rates. Like, you need to spend your money because it's just going to disappear in front of your face to incentivize whatever. So this is very interesting. If you do want, usually at the end of the show, you can hop on and discuss things about Monero. If anything sparks your interest in the news section and you want to discuss it, hop on the show and discuss it with other Monero people. But yeah, this was this week's news section. We had a lot of things to cover, and there's endless more things, but I can't fit them all. So I hope that you enjoyed the news section. Hope that you enjoyed the articles. If you ever want to send me something, you can on Twitter. You can just tag me. You can message me, and you can tag Monerotopia if you want, and we'll cover it next time. But I hope that you're gonna have a good week, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Awesome. Oh, looks like you're muted. Here, there you go.
Nope, sorry about that. Yeah, hopefully Tony will start going live with us again soon. I think maybe in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that would be fun. That'd be fun for sure.
Great. So let's move on. I think we do have.
Do you have anybody who wants to jump up?
Yep, we do have.
Oh,
Luke, I think. Yeah.
Is that
Luke chilling there?
Kayaba? All right.
Yeah.
Let's see. I guess I can add him up. I just want to make sure he's actually ready.
Yeah, just run the viewers on stage, and we'll get Alaska Anon. I saw him up here, and we'll add Kayaba if he can join. That'd be amazing.
All right, give it a thumbs up. Sweet. All right, let's run that.
It's the Viewers on Stage segment. It's that time where we invite you, the viewers, up on stage to comment on anything you've heard so far today, ask the guest a question, or maybe talk about one of the news topics. Come on down.
All right.
Hey, can you all hear me? I think my microphone is going to be bad, and my internet connection is so I apologize if so.
Not too bad, man. Not too bad.
Yeah,
where are you?
We can hear you.
So after Monerokon, I decided to spend a few days in Switzerland. Right now, I'm on a lake.
All right. And what is the conference that's taking place there?
Just for today, there was a privacy conference at one of the universities in a town called Chitchat. It's very interesting. There was people there talking about trusted execution environments, which I am personally not a fan of. It's the word trust in the name of it that makes me not like it. But there were also people discussing, snark, ZK stuff, scaling, and it was overall worth it.
Very cool, very cool. And did you present full membership proofs there, or not that type of crowd? They wouldn't.
I wasn't expecting to present. I was just attending, and then while I was there, Amir Taki just came up to me and was like, "Hey, you want to present?" I'm like, "Okay." So I did end up presenting on it.
Amazing. And what was the feedback there, or was there interaction? Did you get some
I got a few questions. To be honest, we were a bit academically outmatched. Not to say that Monero isn't, doing it slow and steady, but to do it properly. But just to note that I was in the room with some of the people who came up with these next generation protocols that we discussed moving to 3 to 5 years from now. So it's kind of interesting being in a room with these people building these next generation of protocols, and then to bring up, academic work from 3 years ago and say like, yep, that's what we're deploying. The 3 years old work. But at the same time, I think they appreciated seeing Monero make this step, because I think a lot of the people there appreciated Monero.
Very cool. And so they're also, are they Zcashers then too, or these are just like the researchers behind this stuff, like the cryptographers?
It was definitely more of a cryptographer conference. But with regards to, like what kind of tribe they fell into, it was actually sponsored by NIM, the Mixnet. And accordingly, it had a lot of people from NIM involved with it and giving talks.
Very cool. Amazing. Obviously everybody's extremely excited about the full membership proofs. I don't know if you were listening in. Is there anything that we said that was inaccurate, or anything you want to clarify?
I already actually put a few things into the YouTube comments. DGoon pulled up one of the papers that I referenced in my work. They pulled up this thing called a cross-group, or I think the paper title is Discrete Log Equality Across Groups. And that is one of the papers that's involved with the work I did, but it's not the actual membership proof. The actual membership proof is literally called curve trees. The only other notes I wanted to raise, I think you already clarified that no, I have yet to actually receive any funding for my work. The only other thing is technically Tevador has yet to submit code. Tevador and I discussed some of the ideas together, and they found a very nice elliptic curve to move to, which I'm very appreciative of. But the only people who have actually submitted code are myself and Justin Berman so far.
Awesome. And I'll let the other people ask questions, but I want to ask one too. When we spoke at the conference, and after hearing your presentation, I think I failed to fully comprehend that these full membership proofs are deriving from bulletproofs. So am I correct in saying that? Can you explain that a little bit? Like this isn't similar to Zcash's implementation. This is kind of a unique thing, and it's using bulletproofs to get there. Or if I'm completely off, please.
It's a very complicated family tree. So bulletproofs came out in 2016. And bulletproofs is what we use to validate that output amounts are valid by doing something called a range proof on them. We take an output amount and we make sure that it's within 0 and 2 to the 64 or 64 bits. And that makes sure it's not -1, because if it was -1, you could effectively mint yourself funds. So we use bulletproofs for a range proof, but bulletproofs don't have to be used for a range proof. Bulletproofs themselves are actually known as an inner product argument. And it just says that X times Y equals Z over a large amount of X, Y, and Z variables. So while the very first protocol, like they define this bulletproof and they say it doesn't.
Internet on the lake cut out.
Shit.
Of course, at a good part.
Voting accident.
Literally at the edge of my
all these multiplications, the membership proof.
Oh, wait. So you could hear us. If you could back it up.
Yeah, just a little bit. It cut off.
Oh, sorry. Did I drop? Yeah,
you did. You explained that bullet
sorry,
proofs, as we know, are used for a range proof, which is how we all understand it. But you're saying they can
Right.
also be used for other purposes.
Right. So the very first protocol they defined was called a range proof. The second protocol they defined was an arithmetic circuit proof. An arithmetic circuit is any program that can be turned into mathematical statements. So in this case, what we do is we create a quote-unquote arithmetic circuit to run all these hash functions and verify that this output actually does exist in this tree. So instead of using bulletproofs for the range proof, we use it for the general program proof thingy. So bulletproofs came out, I believe, in 2016 and did that. And then bulletproofs was improved upon with bulletproofs plus, which just made it a bit smaller. And my work built off bulletproofs plus just because it's a bit smaller and because bulletproofs plus is already used in Monero. What Zcash did, Zcash didn't use bulletproofs at all. They used a proof called Groff16, which is very, very distinct in a lot of ways. But now Zcash later published the Halo proof, and Halo is actually largely familiar to bulletproofs. Bulletproofs and Halo have a lot in common. So while we're not using Zcash tech by using bulletproofs, we are descending from bulletproofs, and Zcash also has descended from bulletproofs. Zcash then proceeds to do Halo 2, which branches out a bit more. So there's definitely some common ancestry there, but the proofs themselves aren't from Zcash. As for the actual membership proof, saying, oh, this is one of the outputs that existed at some point on the chain, we have a very tailored proof for that. All we prove is the single output did exist on the chain. And that's it. That's all we do. Then we pass it to the existing Seraphis proof for the output ownership, and then we still use bulletproofs to do the range proof. Under Zcash, they don't have these proofs that are so separate. They just have one giant proof to all of it. And there's reasons for that, and there's reasons to do it the way Monero is doing it. So we definitely have a lot more in common now, and they're both using Merkle trees and saying that this output exists somewhere in a tree. But that the exact mechanism is distinct. The proofs have common ancestry, that's about it. And then a lot of other protocols have also used this Merkle tree solution. Tornado Cash also did.
Fantastic. Bawdy is asking, how did the transaction sizes compare against Zcash shielded? I've been trying to find Zcash shielded sizes for the past 30 minutes, having a hard time. Yeah, any insight you can give us there and kind of comparing shielded to what might look like for Monero?
So currently what we're looking at for Monero under my work is 2 kilobytes in input, which puts a 2 in, 2 out transaction at roughly 5.5 kilobytes, if I recall correctly. But obviously I would have to double check the exact numbers on that. I believe Zcash is comparable. Like they might be twice bigger or twice smaller, but I believe they're in the same range. It's kind of hard to check the Zcash transactions. What you have to do is you have to look for an shielded orchard transaction with 4 actions. That's what you're looking for, an orchard transaction with 4 actions. And you would then have to look at the overall size of that transaction. I could do it, except I'm on my phone, and I'm pretty sure if I leave this tab, it's going to drop me from the stream, so I won't do it right now. But it should be roughly comparable. I think we might be twice smaller or twice bigger.
Doug, we can't hear you.
I muted myself. HBS is asking, how long does it take to create a 2x2 transaction? Is it mobile friendly?
So the outputs don't change at all. This only changes the inputs. For the inputs, I believe right now my work is taking a second to create an input, but it should not be taking a second. I did not work on the prover at all. I said, how am I going to go to Monerokon and get people to believe that this is worthwhile? And the way I got people to believe it was worthwhile was by saying, it's only going to be, 8x slower than the Grudel proofs we're currently discussing. So I haven't focused on the prover at all. Right now it's 1 second, which I don't think is unacceptable, even though I don't like it. But it can be greatly reduced from there. I just haven't put in the time or effort.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll let I see DGoon raising his hand. Go ahead, man. Take it away.
Yeah, I just have one question, Luke. It's not a technical question. Could you give us a little more of a history and how we got here? Because I know it didn't come out of left field, but it seems like other projects have taken a lot longer historically to do work equivalent to this. Can you give us more insight into like why you did it? Like you're not being paid to do it, or currently you weren't paid. Just a little more history and background to like you as a developer tackling this issue. My question isn't too technical.
Yeah, sure. So back at Monerotopia 2022 in Miami, we started talking about this, and I believe there had already been some discussion a bit earlier. I don't remember the exact details of how it started, but what it really culminated with was Seth creating an issue for using quote-unquote trustless ZK snarks for full-chain membership proofs. And that's the GitHub issue where most of this development has occurred. Because it's not that the Monero Research Lab hadn't discussed it prior, it just hadn't created this dedicated issue. It was just like thrown around on IRC or like a bullet point on another issue. So it's actually Seth that really created the issue, which got us to start formally talking about it. And I believe after, if I recall correctly, but truly I don't remember the exact details on how it started, I think they created that issue in response to a conversation we had at dinner with like Justin Berman and a few other people. But I believe it was as a result of Monerotopia 2022. So it was something I had been interested in, and we definitely discussed a lot of theory. At one point, I tried doing something which would work, and I spent a couple weeks on that, and it didn't really work out. I didn't really have the knowledge I needed at the time. And it was also something on the back burner. I wasn't working on this for a year straight. No one was working on this for a year straight. I obviously have my own project, Sarai. I know that was brought up earlier as well. And what ended up happening is a couple of months ago, I was at Consensus by CoinDesk in Austin. And I was there with a few other people, and once again, we started discussing ZK Starks. And we're talking about it, and I'm like, well, all we have to do is this piece and this piece and this piece, and that's actually not that much. We could probably get this done in a couple of weeks. So that night, I actually stayed up all night doing the Bulletproofs Plus implementation, and I finished it the next day at the conference. And then the conference came and went. I flew back, and I got back to work on Sarai. I didn't work on it for the next month straight. Then we were at Monerotopia 2023, and I made a bet with Justin Berman about the timeline of the Snarks work. If I got the work done within a certain amount of time, they would do something for me. I'm not going to talk about what that was on stream to respect their privacy, though it is technically public knowledge. And we made that bet. And after Monerotopia, it was something I actually planned to do for Monerotopia 2024. And, you know, I thought, oh, yeah, I'll work on it over the next year. And then I was hanging out with another friend in the Monero community a couple weeks later, and I'm like, no, I could do this by Monerokon. You know, Monerokon's a month and a half out. It would be a really tight timetable, but I could do it in that time span. So for the past month and a half, I actually paused Sarai, and I just did my best to make sure this was the best it could be.
Oh, I know I said I had one question. I'm sorry to give you one more. Am I missing something? Are you saying you implemented a lot of the work required to get full membership proofs on Monero in a matter of months? Like I must be missing something.
Almost all of the code in my submitted work was done within a 90-day period.
How is that possible? Is it like other teams take years to do this? Yeah.
So there was no new academic theory in it, and that's definitely helpful. The other thing that's helpful is I work 60 hours a week and take the weekends off.
Oh, that's it for me. Thank you. I think that thank you so much for answering my question, Luke. Oh my God, thank you.
Yeah, no, happy to. The other thing is simply, it's not that other people couldn't do it. The amount of work we discussed is probably a couple of months. The issue is going to be in reviewing it, polishing it, productionizing it, and auditing it and getting more people familiar with it. Because unfortunately, there are few people out there that can work with this level of code. I mean, if we're talking about the conference I just went to, which was made up of cryptographers, I can't touch what they're doing, despite being one of the more inclined people here in the Monero community. So it's not that they couldn't have done the same work within the same amount of time. It's just that they're busy doing their theory and working on whatever project is paying them. I don't know the exact details, obviously, but it's just a lot of the issue was simply, yes, that no one in Monero had yet to step up. So that was what my work was doing. It was stepping up.
Great questions, DGoon. And yeah, I mean, I feel like lessons to be learned here is, you know, don't assume other people are doing things. Step up and do it, right? Obviously, when Luke steps up and does something, it goes for everybody. Just step up and take action if you feel like something that needs to be done. If you're wondering why, you know, somebody else has done something, is it because it won't work? Maybe it's just because nobody's taken the action. Like Luke said, this kind of all started with Seth just taking the initiative and writing up, you know, in very abstract terms that we should try to consider moving to full membership proofs. And nobody really kind of took it upon themselves to take that initiating step. So I think that's a good lesson to learn there.
There definitely were steps along the way. I remember about 9 months ago, so closer to a year ago when the issue was first created. I remember 9 months ago actually creating a room with
Oh, there it goes.
You're killing me. It's always at the worst.
Let's let Alaska
just the time.
Oh shit! Hold on, Luke's still trying.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I dropped again.
No worries.
Okay,
Go ahead.
we can
If
hear
wanna
you
try
now,
to
though.
repeat,
Go
go
ahead.
Right, what I was saying is like 9 months ago, I tried an effort, but at the time I didn't know enough and it failed. About 6 months ago, where Seth had just posted this issue, oh, we should be working on designing this. We should be investigating it. About 6 months ago, I believe I posted a proper thing, like here's the exact pieces we would want, here's how they would coalesce, here's what we would be looking at. So once we had those pieces, we just need someone who understood it to implement it. And it did take a lot of time. If I say it took me a month and a half straight away from my project, that means it took me a month and a half straight away from my project. If anyone ever asks me when Sarai is launching, I'm blocking them. I was busy with something else. Thank you very much.
So, hold on. Myself and Bawdy, and I can see a lot of other people, are very, very interested in you getting a hold of us so we can at least partially reverse fund a lot of this work that you did. But we would also like to put up something to encourage the process of its audit to move along much faster. So if you could get a hold of us after this, that would be great. But go ahead.
Thank you. Second of all, I actually am planning to submit a pair of CCSs, one dedicated for prior funding and one for future efforts on this topic, not only involving myself, yet other developers who will continue it forward.
Okay, I was going to ask, were you ever CCS funded previously, or you just haven't gotten anything?
No, he hasn't.
Not for this. Technically, I was on the Farcaster team at one point.
So the second thing that I wanted to point out, though, not to pat ourselves on the back or anything, but I'd like to point out just how much of this comes from the social consequences of having a Monerotopia. And it being more of a nonchalant, more of an informal way for people from all different elements of the community to all get together at the same time. I mean, you're talking about like between the friendships and a couple of casual bets and so on. I mean, something like this emerges where a talented individual decides, all right, yeah, it's time. Let's knock this out. I mean, I realize it's not done yet, but the thing is if there's anything I've noticed from other code-based projects, once the code exists, a lot more people are willing to entertain the idea of getting involved because it seems so much less of a Herculean task when somebody has put together the main architecture of such a thing. So I have a lot more to say, but I'd like to see what everybody else thinks about that.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that so much comes out of these conferences. Obviously, you get the content that comes out, but just the interactions, especially at a high level, getting people in a room, letting them collaborate. It's priceless. We need to keep taking every opportunity we can to have these real world interactions among the Monero community.
Yeah, Monero Bowl, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Not on that topic, but I can say that since we now know that these kind of conferences are so valuable, consider donating to the CCS whenever the Monerokon CCS for next year is starting.
For sure. And nice meeting you, MB.
I actually almost didn't meet Monerable because when I first saw them, they literally didn't say they were Monerable. They just waved hi at me.
I had a name tag. You ignored my name tag.
You did not have a name tag visible.
I had one.
In the spirit of Monero, he had it, but it was hidden under a ring signature.
It was anon.
Well, lost in a boating accident.
So I had another thing that I wanted to bring up before we got too far away from where it was said, but I wanted to put it in the context of kind of a list. So obviously, thanks almost entirely to Luke and, some help from some good friends, right? So this represents like a huge step forward in fixing a lot of underlying bugs, as well as, making it even that much more secure. But put that in the context of the pocket change thing, and then put that in the context of the gold Monero liquidity pools that have been discussed, not just like in the interview and what I told you about with what happens up here, but also we saw it in New Hampshire now. And obviously those would be two places you would expect to see that to start, right? The two most liberty inclined places that I know of. But then beyond that, the fiat to Monero ATMs, which I had mentioned that I was working on that in what little spare time that I had based on other people's work. But, I got the hardware and everything. And then if you look at the size and scope of not only the dev pool for Monero, but also the talent of that dev pool and the amount of time each developer is putting into it, whether they're officially part of the core Monero team or whether they're, off to the side doing projects that in some cases are even more important. And if you put all of that together, and all of that is from the last 2 months, maybe something, it's the speed at which this project is going from the best to even better is mind-blowing, and it's breakneck speed. And one of the things that Bawdy had said earlier, and I couldn't agree more, he said something like, how is anyone even going to build something to compete? It's even if you were to hard fork off of all of the existing work from Monero and then try to make something even better, the speed at which the existing Monero team would innovate it's mind-blowing. It's every couple of months now I'm seeing like, the sync times go down by X% and it's some just ridiculously high number, or network transactions explode by X number. And this seems like this freight train of positive news. You just never see anything negative these days. And I don't know if that's me being, my judgment being clouded, but I haven't seen any reason in the longest time to think that the improvements to Monero are going to stop. It seems like they're getting faster.
I think everybody disagrees.
Well, in that case, another thing that I was going to say though is like after the interview that we had, the number of requests for orders for the Get Graphene project is completely overwhelming.
Fantastic.
I never really meant to launch the project beyond like people who needed it for their security until I had finished building the team. But like I'll get back from, you know, a 70-hour work week, and then it's like, oh, let's start working on this for 12 hours this week or whatever. So if anybody out there has ordered one, rest assured I am working on it, but it's at the speed that they come in. You know, I'm sending them out as fast as I possibly can. So, and all of the current requests that have been paid for, there is hardware already secured for that purpose. So,
fantastic. You want to quickly plug it again, the website and whatnot, so people.
Yeah, actually, it kind of ties into what we were talking about. There's things that Bawdy could probably say about this too at some point, but I'm kind of like I'm a businessman at heart. You know, that's kind of what I am, and it's been my opinion for quite a long time that sustainable streams of income need to be established for the open source software community, especially like the true freedom-minded software community. And it's the idea is try to use existing projects to create like highly marketable, economically viable revenue streams. And the most logical thing to me seemed to be if somebody were to secure at a very low entry price, pixels is what you use for graphene, and provide people a super easy to use, secure private smartphone, and have like a really, really low cost for the barrier to entry, and make it super, super simple. And it ships with all of the most vital applications for using a secure private smartphone. And then you take anything that's outside of the purposes for the growth of the project, or the, you know, paying the people who are doing the project. The remaining funds go to either specific projects. So obviously, if you're doing Get Graphene OS, like as you're providing people smartphones, a chunk of it should go to Graphene OS development. So in this case, you know, that eats up a large portion of it. But then it also goes to things like the Magic Monero Fund would be a perfect example. But, you know, nonprofit, well-governed, highly transparent ways to pay for the development of, there's just something really messy about trying to get single donations from single individuals, because they're highly unstable. But then more than that, having like a dedicated group of people to audit the viability of a project and provide like a consistent revenue stream based on certain things being achieved would make a lot more sense. And it's a great way to take from the talent pool of big tech and put it into the talent pool of FOSS projects. But Get Graphene OS specifically, we launched it in a hurry to make sure that anyone who really needs one now, like, so for example, what I mentioned on the interview that you did with me, Doug, was like, let's say you're an Iranian and you need a secure private phone to, you know, do business outside of the country or get your family out or whatever. That's why we just put the project live as fast as we possibly could in whatever state it was in. You know, the Cuba thing being another example, or the Venezuela thing being another example. If anybody doesn't know what we're talking about, the information's out there. But more importantly, putting it out there as it is was kind of a way to see you later, Luke. God bless you. Putting it out there now was also kind of a way to attract a few more people into the project. I mean, cross your fingers, let it be tuxedo. Who knows? It's bring more people into the project to try to crank it up a notch and get phones out there into the hands of people And one of the reasons why I wanted to do phones is because everybody replaces their phone every 2 years or so. And so if you're taking a percentage of phone sales, even if it was 1% of the market share of phone sales, you could easily fund several projects on a very small margin. And this isn't the only one. I've already actually laid out a few other possible business ideas that I think would be highly successful. And then taking that exact model and then putting it together with other FOSS project related business models to, as they say, a rising tide raises all ships. And if anybody's interested in possibly helping out, you can reach out to me somehow. I'm kind of hard to get a hold of, I realize, but I try to be on this show every week, so you can
reach out to him here. How can people get in touch with you? You on Twitter now, right? But you don't really use it.
I really don't use it. I pretty much just use it on Saturday. But I probably will more, but you have to realize Alaska's busiest work season is this last week and this upcoming week. I had mentioned to Tuxedo that the population of Alaska basically doubles, and it's like all hands on deck between tourists and people who move up here for 2-3 months out of the year, and so it's a madhouse for the next week or two. But as things die down, I have a lot more time to work on these projects. But the other thing that I wanted, I'm trying not to hog a whole bunch of time, but one of the reasons why I was so excited about the Noto project, and I'm rapidly becoming a total fanboy about it, and I would love to talk to more people that are working on this about other implications, like the implications for the Tor network, the implications for a bunch of other stuff. But the idea of having easily accessible light wallets, and where any person can put a node in the neighborhood, right? Or even in range of Wi-Fi, or like the implications of having a plug and play light wallet hosting dedicated piece of hardware. I mean, honestly, Doug, I question whether or not you even realize how amazing that would actually be.
Oh, sounds like someone's mic is going crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we're getting some fuzziness. I don't know who that is.
Maybe it's, how do I?
I think it's yours. It's like a bunch of static.
No, I can switch mics actually if you give me a second. I have like 5 other options there.
Yes, you can switch mics. In the meantime, let me just ask MB. And it looks like we lost Luke. He had to go back to chilling with the cryptographers at the conference, which is very cool. MB, man, what's your take on Monerokon? What'd you think?
I think it was a great success. The planning, we learned a lot of stuff for next year. It's great now. Everyone has seen the location, and with a bunch of improvements
location was
already
amazing.
planned.
So it's definitely going to be same place, right? And you guys, I think, already picked a date.
Yeah, it's gonna be, I think, during blockchain week. So like,
it's a great idea.
2 weeks earlier than this time. I don't know the exact date right now.
That's very cool. So people that attend blockchain week can stick around and go to Monerokon, right?
Yeah.
Very cool. What were some of the kind of the big lessons that you guys learned? I assume similar things to Monerotopia, but if anything on the top of your list.
I think for like the talks, we already did a pretty good work, but like the location itself could be better. The live stream could be a little bit better if it had like a schedule when the next thing shows up, because there were sometimes for hours just a static image and no indication of when the next talk is. Like little stuff like putting more screens of the live stream around the venue so that the people who Yeah, stuff like that.
Yep. Yeah, I'd say
Does the
overall it
sound
was
come through
fantastic.
pretty good now?
Yeah, Alaska Anon, I think you sound a lot better.
That's wonderful. I didn't want to interrupt, but I just thought I'd check now while I have it set up.
No, you're good. I think you're okay. MB, anything else you want to share with us? Any other post Monerokon thoughts?
This doesn't have anything to do with Monerokon, but it was mentioned earlier on the news, the Monero.town site. It's like a parallel thing to the subreddit. It's a Lemmy instance, and people can sign up there. It was down during Monerokon because on the first evening of Monerokon, it was some bug in the software and a bunch of instances were crashed. But it's fixed now, and it was great. I couldn't do anything. It was just down, and I was at Monerokon and couldn't fix it. But it's back up now.
Is the idea to kind of slowly move everybody over there and away from Reddit? Do you think that's essential that we do that?
Yeah, I started doing this like 4 months ago. I started an instance because I thought we don't have any forums. We only have the subreddit. If Monero should get banned there, we have nothing left.
We have Monero talk.
Yeah, but like an online forum. Now we also Justin also revived forum.monero.space.
Okay.
So now we have multiple places where community can kind of go should anything happen to the subreddit.
Okay. Any last thoughts? I want to go meet up with Sunita. She ran away into town, and make sure that there aren't any Greek men stealing my wife.
The only thing that I wanted to throw out there is some of the implications for a standardized set of hardware. It's one of the things about the open source software community is you've got these legacy tech people who are really interested in making devices last as long as possible, which is a novel idea. It's a great idea. And then the other thing is you have like 8 million distros for Linux, and you have like 700 hard forks for every single free software project imaginable, which has a lot of incredibly useful reasons for doing so. But then if you're trying to make like a wide, like a broad expanse of lots and lots of hardware available for a network for payments, having one set of hardware to make sure that you always have support for, or at least many different iterations of similar hardware, it allows for the incredibly rapid deployment of a reliable network. Arctic Mind seemed like he was kind of touching on this during the previous conversation, but I think for the layperson, the best way to explain it is like, even for example, the Visa payment network, or the entire internet as it is right now, you have all of these different versions of hardware that's trying to support so many different people making so many different requests. The Monero Nodo idea might actually rapidly outperform most of the architecture for the entire internet, because having like a single set of hardware designs that's based on being uniquely efficient at one particular thing is an excellent way to make it easy for people to rapidly make improvements, to quickly connect. And then if there was something wrong with the network, it also makes it incredibly easy to deploy a fix. So I like, the more I looked into it, and then when the interview kind of came and I had a better idea of what was implicated here, that was one of the things that I wanted to point out is, and this is something that we should be trying to replicate, not with just that project. It's one of the reasons why if you go to like the website that I have, the Forget Graphene OS, we're trying to just basically kind of push people towards the like known to be working and having a low barrier to entry price point, and trying to drive a lot of people towards one or two specific types of phones that are very similar to make it really easy to support a large amount of users. And then if you kind of piece in one new device at a time that you offer support for, it makes it where you have the same questions over and over again for support, where all of a sudden even the community that's using it can support each other. So I'm just super impressed by the whole thing, and I'm glad that you guys grabbed that torch and ran with it because it needed to be done. So thank you.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Yeah, we're very excited about it. I don't want to talk it up beyond, I don't want to talk it up too much. But I totally see what you're saying. And yeah, the vision is certainly big. Initially, it's just to help, strengthen the security of the Monero network and allow people to use Monero in the most private and secure way possible, without having to be very tech savvy, right? Simple plug and play. I'm ready to wrap it up here, and just so I could go grab some tzatziki and some other Greek fare.
That is a very nice view
else?
you got there.
Yeah. I just want to show you guys. Like the sun already set, but this is beautiful. The Greeks figured it out a long time ago, man. They know how to live. Guys, yeah, I'm ready to wrap it up over here. Any last words from anybody?
Thank you all. God bless.
Enjoy your
thank
vacation.
you, Alaska Anon. Thank you, MB. It was a pleasure meeting you in person. Alaska Anon, obviously jump on anytime. Love having you. People love the episode when you came on. We'll do another full Monero talk.
Yep, thanks everyone for
days.
coming on. It's super fun when we have a bunch of people come in and talk about something. It gets really passionate. Super cool.
Yes, Tux, thank you for managing these. You're doing a fantastic job. DGoon, as always, greatly appreciate your contributions. And Bawdy, thank you so much. All right, guys, we will close it out there.
All
See
right,
you next week.
have a good one. Running the outro.
Bye.
Ciao. Run
Thank
the
you
outro.
for joining us on this week's Monerotopia episode. We stream live shows every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. You can find and subscribe to our show on YouTube and Odyssey, or listen to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or Stitcher. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or join us in the Monerotopia Telegram group. See you all next week.